The official record states that the Green Ghost Hotel, nestled in the remote Pine Barrens of southeastern Georgia, was a luxurious sanatorium that tragically burned to the ground on the night of October 31st, 1893, claiming the lives of 4 to 7 souls. But the official record is a carefully crafted lie, a soothing fiction woven by powerful men to bury a truth so horrifying it would unravel the very fabric of reality. The real story begins not with the fire, but with the man who conceived this palace of suffering, Dr. Alistair Finch, a brilliant but morally bankrupt neurologist from Edinburgh. Finch was exiled from the European medical community in 1885 for his grotesque and heretical experiments on the nervous system of terminal patients. He believed that intense, concentrated human agony, harvested at the moment of death, could be distilled into a tangible energy, a primal essence he termed Aetherium. He theorized this essence could halt decay, grant prolonged vitality, and perhaps even cheat death itself. America, with its vast, ungoverned spaces and desperate, wealthy invalids, was his perfect laboratory. He used his remaining family fortune to purchase a tract of land outside the forgotten town of Sulphur Springs, Georgia, drawn not by the rumored healing waters, but by a unique geological anomaly, a massive, subterranean deposit of crystalline quartz that he believed could act as a perfect resonator and battery for the suffering he intended to cultivate. Construction of the Green Ghost Hotel began in 1887. Finch hired architects and laborers from out of state, shipping them home upon completion with lavish bonuses and threats of ruin should they ever speak of the building's peculiar blueprints. The hotel was a marvel of Gilded Age opulence, masking a terrifying purpose. Its foundation was laid not on bedrock, but on a complex grid of iron conduits and copper wiring, all leading to a sealed sub-basement Finch called the Aetherium Vault. The walls were subtly reinforced with quartz powder mixed into the plaster. Each room was equipped with a discreet brass speaking tube that led not to a servant's quarters, but directly down into the vault, designed to channel not voices, but vibrations, the specific resonant frequency of a human soul in its death throes. The hotel opened for business in the spring of 1889, marketed as a last resort for the terminally ill, elite consumptives, cancer patients, those suffering from rare muscular atrophies. They arrived by private train car, seeking a miracle cure from the famed Springs and the brilliant, enigmatic Dr. Finch. What they found was a beautiful prison staffed by a handpicked crew of amoral orderlies and nurses, who answered not to Florence Nightingale's creed, but to Finch's lavish pay and dark charisma. His head nurse, a severe woman named Beatrice Crow, was a former prison matron known for her chilling efficiency and absolute lack of empathy. The treatments were where the true horror began. Finch's therapies were exercises in exquisite torment. He used custom-built electrical generators to administer precise, nerve-shattering shocks, documenting the resulting screams not in audio, but on galvanic meters connected to his conduit system. He developed chemical baths that seared the skin without causing immediate death, prolonging the agony for days. All the while, he presented himself as a compassionate healer, telling his patients their pain was a sign of the sickness leaving their bodies. The families, waiting in distant cities, received beautifully scripted letters detailing brave fights and miraculous improvements, all bought with unimaginable suffering. If Finch's mad science worked, the Aetherium Vault began to accumulate. Its ghastly charge, strange phenomena plagued the hotel. The air grew thick and heavy, smelling of ozone and spoiled meat. The ubiquitous gas lamps often burned with a faint, sickly green hue, earning the hotel its local nickname long before the fire. Patients reported hearing faint, discordant music from the walls, a distorted echo of their own pain, played back by the resonant quartz. Some, deep in their morphine hazes, whispered of shining children who stood at the foot of their beds, their forms shimmering and indistinct, watching them with empty eyes. These were not ghosts in the traditional sense, but psychic impressions, echoes of agony given form by the concentrated Aetherium, drawn to the suffering of the new inmates. The staff, deeply complicit, learned to ignore these manifestations. The final piece of Finch's apparatus was the harvesting. When a patient was on the verge of death, they were moved to a special room directly above the vault, a soundproof chamber lined with copper. Here, Finch would induce the final, catastrophic seizure of pain, using the combination of electrical and chemical means to maximize the output. A large, crystalline lens in the center of the ceiling would focus this final burst of energy and funnel it down into the vault's core, a perfect sphere of polished quartz. Afterward, the body was cremated in an on-site furnace, the ashes labeled as medicinal waste. The families would receive a letter expressing Finch's deepest condolences and a bill for the final treatments. For 4 years, this cycle of suffering continued. The town of Sulphur Springs, economically dependent on the hotel, chose willful ignorance. The strange green glow from the hotel's windows at night, the occasional blood-curdling scream that the wind carried from the woods, the grim, silent deliveries of chemical drums, they were all explained away. It was a sanatorium. After all, death and strange happenings were to be expected. But the energy in the vault was growing unstable. The accumulated agony was becoming sentient, a consciousness of pure pain. The Echo children became more solid, more persistent. They were no longer passive observers. Orderlies reported feeling small, cold hands grabbing at their ankles in dark corridors. The music from the walls grew louder, more demanding. Finch, obsessed and blinded by his own success, ignored the warnings. He believed he was on the cusp of a breakthrough, that he could soon tap the vault and achieve apotheosis. The end began on Halloween night, 1893. Finch decided to perform a mass harvesting. 6 patients were in their final extremities. He and Nurse Crow prepared the harvesting chamber for an unprecedented event, hoping to trigger a cascade effect that would exponentially increase the Aetherium yield. But the entity in the vault, this consciousness of pain, had other plans. As Finch threw the master switch, sending a massive surge of current through his victims, the vault did not absorb the energy. It rejected it. It screamed back. A shockwave of pure psychic horror erupted from the sub-basement. Every gas light in the hotel exploded simultaneously, and the sickly green energy that had been contained for years flooded the halls. It was no longer a glow. It was a fog, a physical presence. The Echo children manifested fully, not as shimmering hints, but as solid, terrifying figures with black eyes and mouths open in silent wails. They did not simply appear. They attacked. They swarmed the orderlies, their touch inflicting the very pains that had created them searing burns, crushing convulsions, the feeling of drowning in one's own fluid. The patients, trapped in their rooms, were driven instantly mad by the psychic onslaught, adding their fresh terror to the maelstrom. A fire started in the east wing, likely from the overturned gas lines, but it was a secondary horror. The primary event was the unleashing of the Aetherium. Finch, in a final moment of clarity, realized his hubris had damned them all. He and Nurse Crow barricaded themselves in the harvesting room. As the green fog seeped under the door and the small, cold hands began to scratch at the walls. What happened in that room was never fully known. The next morning, a party from Sulphur Springs arrived to find the east wing a smoldering ruin and the rest of the hotel eerily intact, but dead silent. They found no bodies, only 47 piles of a strange, gray, metallic ash of Finch and Crow. There was no sign at all. The only thing they found in the harvesting room was Finch's ledger, open to a final entry. The last line, written in a frantic, shaky hand, read, "The children are hungry. They are coming up from the word was unfinished. The cover-up was immediate and thorough. Powerful families, horrified at the potential scandal of their relatives dying in such a bizarre and disgraceful manner, collaborated with state officials. The story of a simple, tragic fire was published. The hotel was boarded up, the land deemed cursed, and the town of Sulphur Springs slowly withered and died, its residents fleeing the memory of that night. But the story did not end there. The entity, the green ghost, remained. Over the decades, it became a magnet for the desperate and the curious. In 1921, the gangster Lucky Lucian Shaw used the abandoned hotel as a hideout. His men found him the next morning, crouched in a corner, his expensive suit soiled, his eyes clawed out. He was babbling about the Shining Kids and the music before he died of sheer terror. In 1952, a state survey crew attempted to map the land. One of them, a young man named Peter Evans, wandered too close to the ruins. His partner found him 15 minutes later, catatonic, holding a handful of cold, gray ash. He never spoke again and spent the rest of his life in a sanitarium, flinching at the color green. The state sealed the access road with cement barricades and warning signs, officially citing unsafe structures. The case was closed, but the most compelling evidence emerged in 1988. A team of paranormal investigators from a local university, led by a skeptical professor named Arthur Bell, broke into the site with electromagnetic field meters, Geiger Co. The cover-up was immediate and thorough. Powerful families, horrified at the potential scandal of their relatives dying in such a bizarre and disgraceful manner, collaborated with state officials. The story of a simple, tragic fire was published. The hotel was boarded up, the land deemed cursed, and the town of Sulphur Springs slowly withered and died, its residents fleeing the memory of that night. But the story did not end there. The entity, the Green Ghost, remained. Over the decades, it became a magnet for the desperate and the curious. In 1921, the gangster Lucky Lucian Shaw used the abandoned hotel as a hideout. His men found him. The next morning, crouched in a corner, his expensive suit soiled, his eyes clawed out. He was babbling about the Shining Kids and the music before he died of sheer terror. In 1952, a state survey crew attempted to map the land. One of them, a young man named Peter Evans, wandered close to the ruins. His partner found him 15 minutes later, catatonic, holding a handful of cold, gray ash. He never spoke again and spent the rest of his life in a sanatorium, flinching at the color green. The state sealed the access road with cement barricades and warning signs, officially citing unsafe structures. The case was closed, but the most compelling evidence emerged in 1988. A team of paranormal investigators from a local university, led by a skeptical professor named Arthur Bell, broke into the site with electromagnetic field meters, Geiger counters, and reel-to-reel audio recorders. They documented faint, erratic energy readings and a temperature drop of 20 degrees in the main lobby. Their audio recording, however, captured something undeniable. Hours of static were punctuated by faint, echoing sobs and the sound of a music box playing a twisted, off-key lullaby. Then, at 3:17 a.m., clear as day, the brass bell on the front desk still sitting under a layer of dust rang once, sharply, as if struck by an unseen hand. Professor Bell's log entry, recorded moments later, noted a sudden, overwhelming smell of ozone, rot, and burnt sugar. His final words on the tape are a whisper. It's not a ghost. It's an echo, and it's learning. The team packed up in a panic and fled. Professor Bell was found dead in his campus office the next morning. The coroner ruled it a heart attack, but the janitor who discovered the body told police the room was freezing cold and the professor's face was frozen in a mask of absolute terror. All the team's photographs from that night were found to be completely overexposed, blank except for a faint, greenish tint. The land is now privately owned by a shell corporation called Peregrine Holdings, registered in Delaware with a corresponding address that leads only to a post office box in Geneva, Switzerland. Tax payments are made automatically from an untraceable bank account. No development has ever been proposed. The purpose is not to use the land, but to contain it, to ensure no one ever disturbs the slumbering horror beneath the Georgia pines. Because the energy is still there, satellite imagery sometimes shows a faint, greenish luminescence emanating from the forest where the hotel stood, visible only on the infrared spectrum. Park rangers and hunters who have strayed too close to the barricades report hearing things. A child's laughter that turns into a scream, the sound of a ringing bell carried on the wind, a music box playing a tune they can't quite place. The fire did not destroy the Aetherium vault. It only sealed it. The suffering of those 47 souls is still trapped down there, fermenting, growing in strength, its sentience slowly evolving in the darkness. The harvest was never completed. The children are still hungry, and the hotel, in its own way, is still open for business, forever waiting for new guests to feed its endless, ravenous echo.